Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Paodcast, presented by the Daily Pao.
This is Pranati,
Amit,
and Purva, and we're from the Daily Pao. It's a Bombay-specific culture and food website, and this is our fortnightly podcast, The Paodcast. So in this episode of the podcast, we're going to be talking about three things in each of our three sections. In Bombay
as we
Binge,
always do.
As we always do, right? In Bombay Binge, we'll be talking about farmers growing super exotic vegetables.
With a special guest.
Roshni Bajaj Sanghvi, who writes a food column for us called Monthly Specials. It's a very exciting column. And in The Scene, we'll be talking about wall art. And in Metro Station, we'll be talking about Bombay history books. So coming up is Bombay Binge.
Bombay Binge.
Welcome to the Bombay Binge. So, as we mentioned earlier, we've got a really special guest. Roshni is our food columnist. Most of you who've ever read a piece of food writing would know Roshni Bajaj Sanghvi.
Ever in your life.
And,
she is celebrity food writer.
Yes.
She is celebrity food writer, and we're really happy to have her on our website. And Roshni's specialty is that she's like this encyclopedia on ingredients and food, and generally she's just like the storehouse of information. And today we'll be picking her brain about a column she recently did on farm produce. So a lot of Indian farmers are growing some very exotic vegetables,
Things
which
that I
she'll
can't even
take you
pronounce,
through.
things that I have never heard of before.
Yeah.
Before I read
And
her
exotic
column.
doesn't mean broccoli, because broccoli is no longer exotic.
It's not.
Passé.
So stuff like purple corn and some really fancy herbs, but we'll let
Shishito
Roshni take
peppers
over.
Ancho
chilies.
Okay, let's hear Roshni's voice.
Yeah,
guys.
so Roshni, in your column you wrote that, this whole, your discovery of these exotic veggies, it started with a photograph that a farmer posted on WhatsApp. So, what photo was this and who was this farmer?
Hi everybody, this is Roshni. About 2 years ago, I had complained about how we don't get white corn in the city anymore. The bhutta that we're used to eating in the rainy season, it's a good time to talk about it again. And at that time, I had interviewed this farmer called Namit Modekurti. He has a farm in the Kaveri cluster. Actually, he has several farms in Karnataka and around the country, where he grows produce that is not usually available in our markets. And we had spoken about how white corn had disappeared because of market demand, and how we had become yellow corn crazy, which is like high sugar and low starch, doesn't have the same flavor.
And also kind of not very tasty, to be honest.
Yellow corn is not tasty.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's just a sugar bomb that travels well and doesn't have much
And is
texture.
it American corn?
It's called American corn, but as we sort of figured that a lot of the corn seeds that are available now to Indian farmers come from a company called Monsanto.
Ah.
And I think at that time there were 16 or 17 corn sort of seeds, corn varieties that seeds were being sold by Monsanto.
Evil Monsanto.
Evil, exactly.
And so that's pretty much why white corn had disappeared. And 2 years later, we'd been in touch on and off talking about, produce and interesting things that we'd found. He, out of the blue, without sort of like a hello or a hi, just sent me a photograph on WhatsApp with an Indian farmer holding up ears of purple corn and telling me this is what we're growing.
Right.
Which I got immediately excited about.
And
I
why?
said,
Now, why would that excite you, aside from the color?
well, aside from the color, it's just that we've never had purple corn grow in India before, and purple corn is sort of an heirloom variety, which is among the original colors available in corn crop from South America, where it comes from.
Right.
And they also have black corn, they have blue corn, which is also varieties of corn that contains anthocyanins, which are really healthy compounds that are antioxidants. It's also corn that has not been modified too much the way yellow corn has been modified.
Right.
So you'll end up with a corn that has a higher protein content, a lower sugar content, has anthocyanins, and it tastes like corn before it got mucked around with.
Right.
So
Before
Complete colonial
Monsanto.
time.
yes, I'm going to leave the puns to Amit.
So
But-
that sort of got you curious about.
Yeah, and also the thing is, I wanted to taste it, of course, because it's got this vivid purple color. And when I did actually taste it, I bought it from the farmhouse company, which I had seen purple corn being sold in the farmhouse company on Scootsy by the farmhouse company.
So farmhouse
They're based in
company, do you want to
Panvel.
just tell us what that is?
It's an organic farm that is started by a lady who did it for friends and family, and then her daughter-in-law Namita sort of joined the business after she got married and decided to expand it and created a WhatsApp group to spread the word. And what happened since is it sort of took a life of its own and started picking up, and now she doesn't need to market it anymore, and now they have an online store on Scootsy.
Right.
So both these guys, they do what we were talking about as exotic veggies. So not just the purple corn, but a whole bunch of other stuff, right?
Yeah, it started with the purple corn, and then I started asking questions to Namit and to Namita, and I found that they're growing a lot more than broccoli and zucchini and romaine lettuce.
Right.
The stuff that was available 2 years ago is passé.
Right.
Now the next sort of wave of vegetables that's going to come in the next, by the end of this year, I would say, is going to be stuff that comes from parts of the world that we've not explored. So we're not talking about European or American vegetables anymore. We're talking about South American. We're talking about stuff that comes from Africa. We're going to talk about like stuff that comes from Australia. It's going to stuff that comes from like parts of Asia that we haven't thought to tap into.
I mean, it's interesting that stuff is coming from South America because, with the Portuguese, we already, we had a chili, we had potatoes, which are all South American imports.
Yeah.
And so now you have this new wave of veggies from South America again.
Yeah.
We should name some. Like, tell us what we
Well,
can.
I mean, there is
Lots
There's-
of chilies.
lots of chilies. Aji panka. You have there's a bunch of stuff that's coming from the Far East, like Eastern Asia and from South America.
Okay.
So we also have stuff that comes from that is indigenous to maybe Japan and Korea, which we
Right.
did not get before.
Right.
From South America, at the moment, currently, it's mainly corn and chilies.
Right.
Also, what happens is because now there are farmers that are growing it in India, we're going to make these vegetables our own.
Yeah.
They're not going to taste exactly like they taste in
And
the
that's
country
the
of
interesting
origin.
bit, right? So even though you're saying they're coming from there, what they're getting is the seeds, and then they're figuring out how to grow them here. And that's interesting because a lot of times that you think that to grow something, it depends so much on the climate and the soil and those kind of things. But apparently these guys say that's not necessarily true, right? You can actually grow anything provided. The only thing is it's not going to taste like what the original tastes like.
Just like Guntur chilies are from Andhra Pradesh originally, but now they're grown in other states. And Guntur chilies from Karnataka don't taste like Guntur chilies from Guntur.
Right.
Apparently, and this is a story that Namit told me, is the white mooli that we have, which is our, what we consider so local, and we make like pickle out of it and parathas out of it, is related to the daikon radish from Japan.
Right.
And it came here when ages ago, one trader, I forget his name now, tried to grow, brought from Japan, daikon radish, failed. And then, landed up with one small farm where it caught on. And he gave up and left. And that little farmer was the beginning of our mooli, which
Right.
has its sort of like,
Roots in Japan.
ancestry in like daikon radish from Japan.
Suddenly, mooli sounds very exotic.
Yeah. And I'm always looking for those. Anyway.
So the daikon, for example, doesn't taste like our mooli because our mooli is spicier, it's a little rougher, it doesn't have the sweetness and the
But you
clean.
can,
So-
there is a certain resemblance.
Yeah,
The ma
there is a
mooli
lot.
is in Japan.
Yeah.
That is correct. The mamuli is in Japan. Yeah, and so and of course, if you you will not find, say, for example, the gol mirchi that Gujaratis use in the curry or the guntur chili in Peru, for example. You will not find them in South and Central America because now we've made these varieties ours, thanks to our microclimates, thanks to our soil, thanks to our hybridization, whatever. So us tweaking the crop so that it sort of, and then it takes on all of humanity apparently started from Africa, but look at how different we look now, right? So think of us as species as well, and varieties of human beings, and that's happening to plants.
But what about, like, you said all this is being grown. Has it been incorporated? Like, where can we see this in use? Because a lot of it starts in restaurants and hotels and then makes its way to our homes. Do you see that happening?
Yeah, because there's obviously a demand for it, which is why they're growing it. I mean, you don't know how large this demand is, so...
Is there a demand for it, or is it just like sort of...
Is it their
these guys who are
experimentation?
passionate
These
about
guys sort
it,
of like
who are...
twiddling around, like, like craft brewer. Sort of specialists.
So chefs are definitely asking for it because chefs are trying to now impress Indian diners that are, like Namit pointed out, well-traveled and want to come here and want to be able to eat somewhat international. A lot of these also are being used more for effect than flavor, but eventually they'll, for like to add color to the plate or decorate a restaurant.
Really? Okay. So they're not really using it like as food and more like
a lot of times
ornamentation.
It comes in well and then gets mistaken for something else and gets used.
For instance, as in you had mentioned something.
Yeah, like these beautiful Peruvian peppers that showed up in a kitchen that had been ordered by the chef, and they showed up and the chef was on holiday, and they resembled that tadka, that sambar ka, the chilies that you use in the sambar.
The Kashmiri chilies.
Yeah. No, the small ones.
The small ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so then basically the family, it went into the family meal, like, which is basically the staff meal that
So it was a bit of a waste.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if it's used as decoration and then it dries out and then you don't know how to use it dried, for example, then you'll just grind it up and use it in your like paneer tikka masala.
Right. So a lot of sort of chefs, I suppose, now that this stuff is available, I suppose it's an education for them as well.
Yeah, because doesn't this guy also send recipes out to all of his customers?
Yes, he sends recipes out. He sort of sends a user's manual to all the restaurants and hotels that are buying from him. So he will start out with the taxonomy, the genus, the health benefits, the ways to use it, recipes, all of that. And some hotels and restaurants look at it and say, okay, fine. Some restaurants will print those emails out and they will send them into the kitchen and get all the line cooks and the commis and the sous chefs to read it, so that they know exactly what they're working with.
Right. Yeah.
In the case of Trikaya and the Farmhouse Company, which is the other two places apart from First Agro.
First Agro is
Namit's
company.
Yeah. So Trikaya is Gupta, Samar Gupta, and Namita is Farmhouse Company. In their case, you can actually buy directly from the business. So Farmhouse Company sells B2C. Trikaya, you can, and this is something that is, on their website and it's on their Facebook page. If you call them a day in advance, if the quantity is sufficient and they have delivery boys, they will send stuff to your place. Or if it's a smaller quantity, if they are not able to deliver, you can go and pick up stuff from their office in Kalagoda. You just need to let them know a day in advance and you can pretty much pick from their portfolio.
Yeah. Rosh, you've been using the corn and so just tell us quickly what you've been already used from what's available.
So the first batch of corn I got, I couldn't bring myself to put anything on it. So all I did was I steamed it in like my steamer basket, which is like this, pot of water at the bottom and a mesh on top.
Yeah.
And I had it hot, steamed. By the end of it, I had like purple fingertips and a purple mouth. And
Do you recommend pressure cooking it?
No, because what happens then is the color leaches out into the water, right?
Yeah.
So you want to try and hold on. And in any case, the steam that dripped back into the pot of water below turned like this beautiful pink color, which I didn't feel like throwing away. But this corn is just beautiful as it is. It tastes very much like white corn. So if you're missing white corn and you're willing to spend a little bit more money, you should have purple corn.
Okay.
And have it like steamed plain or put like a little limbu and salt on it if you get bored if it's steamed plain. And then you can also roast it. You can make this beautiful drink. a purple color drink out of it, which you add a little like lime and salt to and juice these, or you can add, fruit juices to it. It's a very traditional South American drink. And it looks a lot like wine.
Some gin.
Yeah, you could put gin. Or vodka or rum.
Okay.
Let's not go there. You can roast it. You can make it into a soup. You can boil it you can steam it and put it into a salad to add color. What I want to try doing with it next, if, a whole bunch of like my Gujarati relatives don't jump on me. Actually, the very adventurous lot is to make the makai ki khees.
Okay.
Which is where you sort of grind up makai with milk and chilies.
Which is the Indore specialty.
And you sort of cook it slowly until it becomes almost like a very spicy, creamy polenta.
Wow.
Yeah, it's called corn khichdi.
Yeah, corn khichdi and makai ki khees.
Yeah.
Yum. Okay.
It's quite
we're
delicious.
going to be giving our Roshni's address at the end of the podcast, so stick on if you want that.
And you can bug her for recipes. Okay, no, Roshni, kidding. Okay, so that's it for Bombay Binge.
Thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for being on the podcast.
And hopefully we're going to have Roshni again soon because and keep reading her monthly specials. Like the name suggests, they're every month. So you have something to look forward to on the site as well.
And we'll be back with The Scene.
Hi, I'm Amit Verma, the host of the weekly podcast The Scene and the Unseen. In my show, I examine the scene effects and the unintended consequences of public policy and private action. I show how policies meant to help the poor often end up hurting the poor. I've done episodes so far on demonetization, GST, surgical strikes, immigration and MRP. And I will continue my forensic assault on the truth in the weeks to come.
Catch the show every Monday on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you prefer. Or visit sceneunseen.in for all the latest updates.
The Scene.
Welcome to The Scene, and in this episode we're going to be talking about wall art in Bombay. And Amit knows all about graffiti and wall art in the city.
Well, I know how little graffiti we have here and how...
Shit it is.
Yeah, you said it, I didn't. Well, the reason we're talking about this is because the Wall Project is doing right now, they're painting a stretch of Lokhandwala Circle and actually other parts of Andheri. They've been doing this for the past 10 days, and today, the day that this podcast is out, which is Friday, June the 24th, is the last day of this exercise actually. So if you're interested in going and joining this sort of crowdsourced wall painting exercise, it's between 4 and 7. Check out the Wall Project on Facebook and you can find out.
Do you want to say what the Wall Project is?
The Wall Project is essentially, it's sort of like a collective of people. There are a few people who organize it, but what they do is that they literally paint walls across the city.
Well, you've seen the Low Parel one. The
Tulsi Pipe Road stretch is the most common
of
place where their work is around. And, but they're all over Bombay. They've sort of been, their work is pretty much everywhere.
I take that back. I don't think all graffiti shit. Bandra has some pretty good one by the Bollywood. What are they? The
Bollywood Art Project. Yeah,
they're pretty good.
But, that's... I think...
I like what Street Art India did.
Wall art and graffiti are sort of two separate things.
Right.
We're going to talk about all of it. But wall art in our city is pretty unimaginative. And this is the problem with the Wall Project as well, which is great what they're doing because they're beautifying spaces, and you'd rather have, a painting where you might get some ugly poster bills there, right?
Or like spit marks.
Exactly,
or
pan stains and stuff. But this is a directive that they put on their Facebook page which says, please don't paint anything that is religious, commercial advertising, political and no social service messages. Use less or no writing and try to paint stories or things you have to say or share. So what you're getting really is a very sort of... a kosher version of like sort of what of what graffiti or wall art should be.
It's a bit like the Berlin Wall. There's like it's something I would not recommend people go see.
Okay, so what is that like?
I mean, it's commissioned pieces, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just all slightly more, like you said, kosher. So nothing of relevance really on there.
And I think graffiti is the whole
is by
idea
nature.
of political.
Yeah, exactly.
Graffiti is to be political, is to be subversive.
And there's a lot of beautiful graffiti all all over. So there's a lot of rebellion everywhere else, but the Berlin Wall itself is just like...
So what you're getting in Bombay, for instance, like you said, the few places that we do see some great wall art is Bandra, which thanks to Ranjit Dahiya, his Bollywood art project, and this is mainly around Chapel Road and Baroda Road and Bandstand, where you've got
Also street art.
Yeah,
Or start,
the street art project.
The street art
now,
project.
Bollywood art project, as the name suggests, is a lot of Bollywood themed.
Right.
You know, they've got that Anarkali poster. They've got Amitabh Bachchan from Diwar, and it's very kind of. But again, Bollywood is such an easy sort of way to connect with people, right? It's something that everybody, can identify with, and they've got the one that actually is not his best work is the most prominent, which is the MTNL building, right? Which is...
is that them? I thought that was a street art
street art project.
That's a street art
he did
India.
that. So it was
that's
Bollywood
the-
art
yeah.
project with street art. Now,
Well, I mean, people are quite divided about that. A lot of people think it's awful.
yeah.
I mean, it looks awful.
You can't miss it, I guess.
You
But
can't
miss it,
point.
yeah.
It's-
But what's nice is that MTNL allowed them to do this on their building.
And what I do love about wall art, though, is that it's really sort of a reflection of the culture of the time.
Right.
Now, for instance, when you Love Grove pumping station Worli, which is like if you're taking the ceiling, when you cross it, you sort of is exactly. You can't miss it. I actually saw the album cover of Nuclear's Bass Rani being painted around one section of that wall.
Oh,
and it was
really?
being painted by a guy who looked like a middle-aged man, and he didn't really look like your average bass music concert goer. Now, maybe I'm being a bit sort of...
Was he that man who comes to every gig?
No, he wasn't Bling Uncle.
Mahavir.
He wasn't Bling Uncle.
Who's my Facebook friend?
And so he seemed like a regular guy, and I was surprised, but he's clearly seen this image somewhere, right? So I don't know how he got to know it, but he's sort of, now that Bass Rani, which is basically this image of this woman with a nose ring, and, it's on that wall. So you wonder how it really got there.
So wall art is basically, it's crowdsourced graffiti?
Yeah, Wall Project is crowdsourced.
Right.
For instance, how the Street Art Project worked, or the START Project, is that it's a collective of international, artists. So people from all over Europe, Indian artists
Right.
also, and so they get together and do this. And they've got some really nice stuff in Bandra and the Harawi,
Beautiful
which
stuff,
is like,
yeah.
they've got the really nice bovine, creature that's riding a cycle, which is right next to Saltwater Cafe.
Yeah.
They've got a whole
There's
bunch of stuff.
There's this bear that a lot of people missed. The steps that lead towards Mount, when you're turning,
The steps
turn
itself
towards Mount
have a
Mary.
bear.
There's like a bear there, and that's
but you have to
great.
look. You have to sort of walk back and then see.
You have to see from a particular angle.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the most common graffiti that's all over, that we find all over Bombay, and that is a single word.
It is
What
a
is
single
that
word, and it's moron.
Moron.
You see this everywhere. This is primarily, I think it's on along the western railway line. So right from South Bombay to Andheri, this guy has painted in various level of skill. I think that he's sort of he's developed as he's gone along. Started up in South Bombay, which is just scribbles, and
No calligraphy.
and
talent.
then he's moved on, and stuff in the western suburbs is more sort of
So are
detailed.
Moron and Magarmach the same?
I don't know.
It looks very similar.
But Moron is pretty famous because he's been interviewed. He's been interviewed by DNA and a couple of
Moron has been interviewed by DNA.
So we know it's a he.
Yeah, and we know it's a he because the article says that. And this is what he says about when asked why the word moron. The word moron signifies a person of mild mental retardation, and in Hindi means bewakoof. A moron is considered to be stupid or foolish. It is my alter ego, but I am not one. I just happen to like the word. Its balance and its formation, the flow it possesses.
Whatever, that sounds like a very moronic thing to say.
Why are we dissing Bichara Moron? What graffiti artists, and I'm not talking about wall art, but they want to be interviewed and they want to be written about, but it's not like this everywhere else where they have their
they don't want to be identified.
They have aliases.
They have aliases. So Moron's alias is clearly a moron.
And they go to great lengths to sort of protect their identities over there, which is fantastic because obviously they're doing something illegal.
Yeah.
But that aside, it's serious business, and I kind of just love that there's something.
But but Moron does touch upon some of those things in this interview, and he says that look, it's tough because you're going. I mean, you have to do this in the middle of the night when nobody's looking, because it's illegal, right?
Right.
But the thing is, if you're going to do something illegal, then try and do something
Aesthetic.
Something
intelligent,
interesting.
Yeah.
something interesting.
It probably takes him
thought-provoking.
5 seconds to write Moron.
Yeah,
or spray
and
it on the
there's
wall.
like you said, there's Magarmach. It might be Moron's like I don't
Alter
know,
ego.
alter
Alter
ego. Yeah, his side project, because there's suddenly around Bandra somebody just sort of spray painting, and not even like in very sort of.
It's the same sort of moronic. Moron.
Yeah, it's just a scribble, right? It's just a lettering that says Magarmach.
Magarmach, yeah.
I mean,
which is great. I mean, I'm more curious about this. Maybe they're like fans of Khon Bari Mang or something. You never know.
But this is the state of graffiti today, that Kanakya Miami. Now, Kanakya builders, people might be, if you sort of travel,
I think now everyone
knows what they are, because they've
Kanakya
hired
Builders is.
Zidane to be the brand ambassador. So I think he's for Kanakya Paris, but Kanakya Miami apparently, which is going to have a graffiti wall. So
they should get Moron because this would be like a perfect
imagine
fit.
This sort of gated community, this luxury building is going to have a graffiti wall, because that's what it's so cool to have that.
Co-opting
the whole thing.
subversive.
But there are, speaking of subversiveness, there are a couple of people who attempt to do that. There's a guy called Daku, who's from Delhi, I think, right?
Who's from Delhi?
Who attempted to...
I know Daku's
who
identity.
painted the word in Devanagari script.
That's going to get beeped, right?
Okay, but this is for
word.
now. I think they should allow it, because this
Painted
is integral to the
Delhi.
story. So,
Yeah, just say duck. Painted the duck word.
Painted the duck word. Painted the F word, which rhymes with duck.
There's also Tyler.
That was Roshni, by the way, just sitting quietly. Roshni.
No, wait, Urta
who was
Punjab is now got like a couple of cuss words removed. I mean, you should be allowed to say it.
Right. Well, Tyler, I had to interview Tyler a couple of years ago.
He's the other slightly subversive guy, right?
Well, sort. I mean, not. You can't. I suppose this is what goes for subversive in this city. But Tyler, as you might have guessed, named himself that after Tyler Durden, the character in Fight Club, and he is. He was completely in love with this character, and so decided to call himself that. And so he would, I don't know if he's particularly active anymore, but he would paint things like, a girl feeding a chicken with one hand and holding a bloody dagger behind her back with the other hand. And I asked him about it, and he said that he was inspired by this woman he saw in Warsaw who used to sell boiled eggs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was the inspiration.
That was the inspiration.
Because he does sort of fancy himself to be the Indian Banksy, doesn't he? Because he's
I
got
do
like this
think
one
so.
thing where he's got this row of rifles and a sunflower in the
But
middle.
the idea was to show how greedy people are. They kill for their own advantage. So they, kill chickens or whatever for their own advantage. But there was also, I don't know if you guys remember, this one series of graffiti, a guy giving marks for how clean a wall is.
Yeah.
So you'd see 7 on 10, 4 on 10.
Yeah, which is kind of ironic because he was actually ruining the nice places that he was grading by giving those marks.
Absolutely.
Outside some of them. So he'd give somebody like 90 on 100, but the irony was he was actually spoiling that 90 by this very act.
But Tyler, one thing that I remember him saying was that he was forming his own club.
Okay.
Not, I don't know if it's called the Fight Club, but, sort of a group of fellow graffiti enthusiasts. I don't know if he's actually gotten around to doing that, but...
A Daku meets Tyler collaboration would be great.
I'm sure some of these, I think Daku was part of the street art project, maybe in Delhi.
Yes.
Yeah, but Tyler uses stencils.
He
uses
stencils.
He used stencils, and he said that he used them because he's not a very good artist. So it was a sort of convenient way.
Yeah.
So he would sort of cut out stencils and then spray paint over them.
And stencils are also the fastest way to, draw and dash.
Exactly. So he would do this at night.
Or stickers.
Speaking of stickers, now I think one of the best representation or the best use of it actually has been by, we've talked about male
my Hindi.
Male graffiti artists, but there have actually been a couple of women, and I don't know if a woman did this, but and you might have seen this if you attended that art exhibition at this co-working space called Ministry of New, where there was they series of post-its that said a woman was harassed here. Now that was it was an actual poster that was put up in near TIS, the Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Chembur, and somebody actually put that up, and it was just a shocking pink paper with just this black lettering that said a woman was harassed here, which I think makes such a statement, right? It's so simple, and
but it was sort of completely out of context
in
at
that show.
Ministry of
Yeah.
Well, actually, that was, I think, the CBI offices. Before it was Ministry of New, that space.
Okay.
So it's quite likely a woman was harassed there.
Entirely possible.
Entirely possible. And another there's this girl called Jeel Goradia who has got the Break the Silence project, who's really doing something interesting. Now, what she does is that she takes cutouts of Bollywood posters and she changes them around. And she sort of uses to make, comments about domestic violence, sexual violence, talking about us and using that device. And so, for instance, what she's done is, that the poster of the dirty picture that Vidya Balan film, where she's sort of surrounded by these three guys who play her love interest in the movie, and she's replaced the word "the dirty picture" with virginity, and she says. The lettering says, I don't know what the original was, but it says, "Main karu to sala character dhila, tu to kya doodh ka dhula."
Oh my God, Amit, you're Hindi.
Where is this?
Apparently her stuff you can see around the city. You can see it in Andheri near the railway station, in Juhu near the Starbucks there, and Bandra around Rizvi College. I don't know exactly where this is, but, she's got a whole bunch of them, talking about different subjects.
There's the note, the suicide note of that student. We ran a post on it.
Rohit Vemula,
and there was also a female artist who did.
Okay, we don't know the identity of that, but it's interesting she was a female.
I do know this, and
we actually do know the identity. We're just not allowed to say.
We don't want to say it. Yeah. And there's Pardon My Hindi. So there are.
Yeah, well, Pardon My Hindi is a guy.
Yeah, a guy from
and
San Francisco.
And that's not actually making a statement. It's just this woman laughing who looks like a...
it's great. It
like
starts
actress,
a conversation.
Like a 1960s
I don't
actress.
think Moron starts a conversation.
Yeah, and you can't really see Pardon My Hindi anyway, except I think at a dustbin outside Doolali, he's put one of his stickers. That's one of the few places it hasn't been removed.
Right.
But I mean, I think that basically what we're trying to say is that, it's great that we have wall art around in Bombay because it wasn't there, say, 5-10 years ago. But it would just be so much better if they try to make some sort of a statement with it.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's true.
So that's it for the scene, and we'll be back with Metro Station.
Hi, I'm May, and I'm a huge fan of the indie music scene in our country. A scene that's relatively underground, even though it sometimes peeks its head overground, but there's no shortage of talent, and I get the privilege of interviewing some of the most awesome musicians on my show. I've had the likes of Euphoria, Krish Kale, Hardcore, Randolph Correa. I've had singer-songwriters, folk singers, electronic music producers, playback singers, rappers, fusion artists, instrumentalists, classical musicians, and so on. Whether mainstream or not, these people have chosen to release their original music, and these are the people currently shaping the direction in which our music scene is heading. Join me on my show every Monday and tune in to discover the unique talent coming out of India today. You can catch Made in India on your favorite podcasting app or our very own IVM podcast app.
Metro Station.
Welcome to Metro Station, and on this episode we're going to be talking about Bombay history books. Not books like Shantaram or Maximicity, which aren't technically... They're Bombay books, but they're not Bombay history books. And Prawn, being the resident specialist, is going to talk about 3 or 4 that she finds really interesting.
Yeah, I think sometimes you should call me Pranati because, someone listening to our podcast for the first time might not know that.
Well, you introduce our names right at the beginning. I don't think
right,
that...
but if someone just...
Okay, the next time you just say, this is Pranati, aka Prawn.
Come on, prawn sounds edible.
Yeah. Well, I thought I'd sort of, talk about three books that I particularly like. And I think these are sort of beginner's books. So if you're interested in local history and you want to know more about the city... your first port of call should be City of Gold, the biography of Bombay, and it was published in 1982 by a woman called...
recent.
Hey,
it is kind of recent.
We're all dating ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Well, yeah, it is, 82. But it's also like, it's a very handy book. It's a potted history of the city. And I think anyone interested in local history, this is the first book that they read. And it's called City of Gold because, Bombay has been the city of gold for many people, for immigrants, because, actually this name has several layers. One is it's a place where you come to get rich, and City of Gold, the Hindi translation is Sonapur. And Sonapur, which is this area near Dhobi Talao, used to be called Sonapur because there was a huge grave over there. And why was it called Sonapur or City of Gold? Because apparently in Marathi there's a saying that you become gold after you die.
Oh, I thought you bury your dead with gold or something like that.
No, we are not Egyptians. We are poor Indians. No gold buried.
From ashes to ashes, gold to gold dust.
Yeah.
They will be exhuming those graves like...
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
That was the case.
Yeah. So there was this huge European grave over there, which I think is now completely built over, so that grave doesn't exist. But so this is a great book, and it talks about, it starts from when the city was known to the rest of the world as Heptanesia.
Because it was a malarial island.
Exactly. In fact, now that you mentioned island, let's do a pop quiz, guys.
Oh no.
I'm not participating. I have excluded myself from this. Roshni and Amit will
It is
participate.
well known that Bombay was a city of 7 islands. What were these 7 islands?
Okay.
Come on.
Kolaba.
Yes?
You took mine.
Oh no. Okay, your turn.
Okay, Mahim.
Okay,
Wali.
yes. Yes. Then?
Parel.
Yes, that's 4.
Old Woman's Island.
Yes, that's 5.
Bandra was
And-
not an island.
No,
Bandra was
not part of Bombay.
Salsette, which
Salsette,
was
yeah.
not...
Bombay.
Bombay is one island, yes. One more to go.
So what? Aren't we done already?
No, we're 6.
That's 6.
So what? We've got Kolaba, we've got Old Woman's Island, Old Woman's Isle, whatever. We've got Bombay,
Worli.
Mahim, Worli, Panvel,
Parel.
Parel, and
And Mazgaon.
Mazgaon. Yeah, how could I forget Mazgaon, which was the subject of our...
What is the subject of,
Of our very
Amit, you
recent
got these
podcast.
answers in the cab on the way here.
I'm not saying anything.
He did.
There's no chance you knew this.
I knew some of them.
Yeah, so if you want to know about stuff like this is a great book to refer to. Another book is called Govind Narayan's Mumbai, or, in its Marathi translation, it's Mumbaichi Varnan. This book was published in 1863, and it's by someone called Govind Narayan. He used to be a teacher in the city, and he'd been in Bombay since the 1820s. And this is quite an interesting book because it's considered the first real local biography of Bombay.
When was it published?
In 1863.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it predates like the City of Gold by whole...
Yeah. It does. And it's not by a scholar. It's about a resident. It's about this guy who walks around the city and sees things, and so because it's not a scholarly book, it's full of errors. But the translator, Murli Ranganathan, who's translated from Marathi to English, has sort of footnoted all the errors and sort of corrected them. But it's fantastic because it's a resident's view of the city, and he lived through a lot of the moments that historical moments.
One of which you
moments-
were telling me about is, I think, the most intriguing of them all. Is the Parsi dog riots.
What? Okay, elaborate.
Yeah, so this is one of, every book on Bombay will talk about the Parsi dog riots. Gillian Tillman's book, she devotes a couple of pages to it. Basically, around the 1830s, the British wanted stray dogs to be culled. But because Parsis love dogs, they said, no, please don't kill the stray dogs. But some stray dogs were culled. Okay. And then the Parsis revolted. They took to the streets.
With their dogs.
No, they just
With their
took to
pets.
they just took to the streets and they said, listen, why don't you just take the dogs away and put them somewhere else? Don't kill them.
Oh.
But yeah,
Bless
so
them.
this was...
Bless
So then, but what was the riot element of it?
Bless
so
them bleeding hearts.
They beat up the Parsis.
No, they didn't. Well, yeah, the cops came out. There was a confrontation because
That's
they didn't
right.
want the dogs to be taken away. So Govind Narayan talks about stuff like this, and he was actually, he was living in Bombay at the time. He was very young, but he was living in Bombay at the time these these things took place. So
I have to confess that I read it as Mumbai Chi Varan.
Mujhe Varan. Because Varan Bhat.
Yeah, because food, that's all
You thought it was a food book.
Yeah, I did.
So it's sort of divided chapter-wise into, places. So places such as Mazgaon, Mathar Pakadi, Kolaba. So he sort of...
Where did he live?
I'm actually not sure where he lived.
Okay, fair enough.
He was a man about town.
He was a man about town. He talks about events. He talks about people. He talks about
Did he have
trades.
to do listings?
Did he have to do listings?
What was his business? Like,
Well,
what
he was a teacher.
Oh, a teacher,
he was a
right, you
teacher,
said,
yeah.
okay.
And, he was quite he was on various, the book talks about all the various committees he was on. So he was a, well-known person. The third book is an extremely handy resource. It's called Bombay, Place Names and Street Names, an excursion into the byways of the history of Bombay. And it's by a guy called Samuel T. Shepard, who also wrote a book called The Baikala Club. Not that that's
Is
very
that a fiction
interesting.
book?
No, I think it's probably about the Baikala Club. So this was published in 1917, and this is a fantastic book because it tells you why... it tells you, the stories behind the names of streets.
Okay, pop quiz. What?
Okay, no, don't give me a pop quiz because... But okay, well, let's see if I can answer. Give me a pop quiz.
A very easy one. Why is Kemp's Corner called Kemp's Corner?
I don't know. It's
Why?
because of a
there
guy
used to be a
called
chemist
Kemp's.
called Kemp's at the corner.
I knew this.
Also,
Because I told you
Yeah.
last night.
No, I
told me
knew
5
that.
minutes
I
ago.
knew that, but wasn't Kemp someone else?
It was a chemist.
Okay.
and also the first three letters are KEM, and there's lots of Gujaratis in the neighborhood.
Game.
Roshni Bajaj.
But so it'll tell you things like why is Arab Lane in Grant Road called Arab Lane, because there were Arab pearl merchants in the area.
Isn't that what they call Gulf Hotel Lane?
Possibly. But it's also possible that it was named after an Arab ascetic who pretended to possess supernatural powers.
Wow,
So
that's so much more interesting.
Yeah, it is. Or, let me ask you guys, since you live close to Breach Candy, and Roshni, you used to live on Breach
Yeah.
Candy at one point. Why is Breach Candy called Breach Candy?
Well, candy comes from Khand.
Kind.
Breach.
Because
I'm not
it was by the sea and was
Yeah.
a breach.
So there was
Yeah.
a wall,
Yeah.
which was the breach to sort of prevent
Yeah.
the water from flooding the roads. So Breach Candy. Kind
Yeah.
became Candy.
Candy,
Right.
Breachkind.
Yeah. So sort of, great stories.
So now a
like
lot of
this.
places, I'm guessing because this was in the 1870s, like, does he have places? Obviously, there's only places up to that point, right? So what's not in there? Like the places that have come up?
Yeah, like the new places like Baba Sahib Bhadkamkar Marg, you will not find in this book. Or Nyayamurti Sitaram, you will not find in this book. In fact, I really think that the BMC should come out with...
Yeah, we're there. That's a great idea. We should do this to the BMC.
Yeah, we should pitch it to
We
the
should
BMC.
pitch it to them.
Give us
the Daily
money.
Power entering the
We will
publishing
do.
space.
Oh my God.
BMC.
And finally, I want to mention this book called Goan Pioneers in Bombay. And the reason I'm bringing this up is it's unlike the other three books. It's it's more specific. It's about the Goan community in Bombay. But I feel it's important because I think the Goans who came to Bombay, in the 18th and 19th centuries, I feel they're sort of left out of the Bombay narrative. They pretty much built the education system over here. But when you talk about, say, Bombay's merchant princes, you talk about Parsis, Marwadis, Gujaratis. But, you had some Goan merchant princes as well. Like, you had Roger de Faria and you had the D'Souza Limas, like fantastically wealthy people. You had a lot of Goan doctors. You had, our schools. We all went to schools that were built by the Jesuits, etc. So the huge contribution, but, not credited as much as they should in the narrative of Bombay. So Goan Pioneers in Bombay, it's a book by a historian called Teresa Albuquerque, who's written a lot of stuff on Bombay, and it's quite fantastic. All these books are available. And Govind Narayan's Mumbai, City of Gold, they're available online, and Bombay Place Names, the entire text is available online, so you can see it for free.
And can you also buy it?
I'm not sure if you can buy it because I don't think this is printed anymore. But you can just.
I don't think there's a printer, and I looked for it.
Yeah, but you can read the entire thing online.
Yeah,
which is great.
Yeah.
So that's it.
And I think that this is something that we can make a series actually, because we've just mentioned 4, but there are a whole load of Bombay history books that we can talk about. And,
next time we'll talk about weird Bombay novels because there are lots of those. And so that's it for Metro Station, and we'll be back next week.
If you like listening to the podcast, check out Geek Fruit, hosted by Uber geeks Tejas Menon and Jishnu Guha. The show talks about geek culture from an Indian perspective. Star Wars, comic books, science fiction and fantasy, TV shows and more.
एक्सक्यूज मी भैया, एक्सक्यूज मी.
बोलिए मैडम.
मेन्यू में क्या है?
मेन्यू में सीन अनसीन है, पॉडकास्ट है, ऑन कोर्स है, साइरस है, मेड इन इंडिया, रीडिस्कवरी प्रोजेक्ट, एम्पावरिंग सीरीज, सेक्स वैक्स है, IVM लाइक्स है, सिंप्लीफाइड है, कीपिंग इट क्वियर है, टिंग्स एंड डेस्टिनेशंस है, माय नेबर सकरबर्ग है और द फैन गराज है. आपको क्या चाहिए?
एक बार रिपीट कर देंगे क्या?
रिपीट नहीं करता हम. आप जाओ IVMpodcast.com पे और सुनो ये सब, या फिर डाउनलोड करो उनका ऐप. सब आपकी उंगलियों पे.